There we go.
Freaking on, man. Frank Hannon, thank you, man, for taking some time here to join the Toddcast in Vancouver, Canada.
Vancouver, Canada, huh? All right. Well,
Dude,
I might be dressed accordingly for that.
yeah, well, it's just starting to snow here today. So, unlike what most people think of Canada,
Yeah, I love Vancouver. I used to go there when I was a kid. My grandparents used to vacation up in Victoria.
oh, no, I own the island. Okay, cool. Right on.
Yeah. And I'm also a huge fan of the band Heart, and I know they spent a lot of time up there in the 70s. And so,
Yeah,
yeah, beautiful city.
yeah, great city. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that's one of the questions. Of course, I got a ton of, fan questions and stuff for you, but that was one of the questions of like, when are they coming back? I think the last time you guys were here, it was with, was it Def Leppard and Poison, I think.
I know, man. It's really been too long. We don't get out of the country much anymore. We don't go to Europe much anymore, or Japan, or Canada.
Yeah,
It's definitely something that we would love to do if we can put it together and afford to do it.
yeah.
But Vancouver is pretty dang close. There's no real reason why we can't get up there.
Skip over
But
the border and there you are, right?
but I tell you what, the Canadian border is pretty tough, man. They crack
I've heard,
down on us musicians whenever we try to get across.
yeah, I've heard the same from many musicians. It's a bit of a pain in the ass. Uh,
But you know, it's really not my job as far as making those kinds of things happen. I used to try to push and push and push for these things, but I've finally determined that my job is to play guitar. And they point me, they go, okay, the stage is over there. So I just play guitar and get on the stage. That's,
nice, nice.
I wherever they point, that's where I go. So hopefully they'll point us in your direction.
Yeah, yeah, it'd be nice to see you back up this way. Frank, I'm honestly like such a longtime fan, and I've talked to Troy before he left the band or hiatus or what do you want to call it. So I'm just where do I start with you? And I think I want to start before you're in any bands, before you're famous and all that shit. Like what is the music in the Hannon house as a kid growing up? Like what are your parents playing you to get you down this road?
Well, uh, it was very diverse. We're talking about in the 70s, and music was great in the 70s, and a lot of FM radio was playing so many great artists. Frampton Comes Alive was huge. Leonard Skinner. I remember the first time I heard Freebird on the radio. But before that, my parents and my mother and my stepdad and his family was very diverse culturally. It was my mom married a Mexican guy, and so in that family, it was a big family, and one of my cousins loved hard rock music and Aerosmith and Nugent and all of that. And then my other cousin loved Ohio Players and P-Funk and funk music and disco. My stepdad, he loved Hank Williams and Johnny Cash and Bob Dylan. My mom loved you know Grateful Dead and jumping blues music, Canned Heat, Jefferson Airplane. So as a kid growing up in that environment, I was exposed to all those influences.
Mm-hmm.
And and then as getting into high school and becoming a guitar player, and when Van Halen came out, and the Scorpions and metal and Randy Rhoads and all that came out later in the 80s, obviously playing guitar was influenced by that and those guys. But the elements that you hear that I contribute to Tesla, like acoustic guitar and country twang, and like in What You Give, there's some elements of country music in the guitar playing and the songwriting of that. uh comes from those early influences of of all those different types of music that I grew up with as a kid, just from my input. Now, each guy in the band, it's a team effort. Each guy in the band is influenced by different people. Like Brian Wheat's influenced by the Beatles heavily. So you'll hear some Beatles influence in our music with, piano stuff and chord changes. The early years when Tommy Skeel was in the band, he brought more of a heavy metal influence into our music. So you'll hear some riffs like that in some of Tesla's music. But Tesla albums have always been very diverse, with each guy bringing in their own ingredients to the music.
Flavor to the band. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that I think that the fans love about the band too, is that there's just so much to choose from and pick from, and you can hear those influences from the get-go, from Mechanical Resonance through to today.
Well, thanks for recognizing that, man. I think on one hand, we used to wonder why we couldn't ever get, like a lot of publicity or whatever. But on the other hand, I'm glad, because we were never able to really pigeonhole Tesla as a glam band or a metal band or a this or a that. Our band has always been kind of multifaceted, which I'm very happy about.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, straight up, it's a solid rock band, right? Like, how old were you for Mechanical Resonance? Because I remember that album, The Great Radio Controversy, specifically, these were the albums for me for like grade 9, 10, 11, like the formative party years. So how old were you when you started the band, I guess?
Well, Mechanical Resonance came out in '86, but we had been working on it in '85, '84, '83. We had been developing as a band.
Mm,
I turned 20 in October of '86. So I was 19 when I recorded the album. 18, 17, even back to 16 years old, working as a musician locally, and writing those songs and playing the clubs and paying our dues and hammering it out with the guys who were a little bit older than me. Brian Wheat was 18 when I met him. I was 15 when he and I started the band.
mm.
I had already been playing in bands since I was 12,
No
with my
kidding.
cousin. And I grew up really quick. In my household, it was a wide open South Sacramento. There was parties all the time. So when I discovered guitar and played my first gig at 12 years old at a Moose Lodge in front of 50 people, and they all were rocking out. I was hooked ever since. And then so I just went backwards there in the timeline from the first album. But really quick, I was 12 years old when I played my first professional gig and got paid $20 at a Moose Lodge.
Yeah.
Met Brian Wheat when I was 15. He had already been playing a lot in some older bands that were older than me. I joined forces with him. He and I regrouped and put a new band together, started playing, hammering it out. Every weekend we played at either a party or a club. We met a guy who wanted to be our manager. The manager freaking drove us hard like a drill sergeant, gave us a place to practice, started introducing us to people, Ronnie Montrose being one of them.
Mm.
Dwayne Hitchings was a songwriter, which ultimately led us to going to LA. We would drive to LA. We would drive to Boise. We would take these cars and we would relentlessly work, practice, and gradually change from being a top 40 cover band to being an all original band. and still playing covers here and there and having fun with it, but writing our own songs like Modern Day Cowboy and Changes and Coming at You Live and you know, Rock Me to the Top. We were super driven and very hardworking as a band. And at that time, I was the youngest guy, but I was right in there with the rest of the guys, paying our dues, and wrote those songs and put out the first Tesla album and recorded it when I was 19 years old.
That's amazing, man. And so how did you meet Jeff? Like, because when you start to compare, not no, I don't want to compare, but when you start to look at other bands like you know Motley Crue, you know, Vince Neil's not what he was before. Uh, there's lots of, I don't want to start picking into those guys, but my point is that Jeff, it doesn't seem like he's lost anything. He feels and sounds like he did 30 years ago.
Well, I'm going to say thanks on his behalf for you, for
Yeah,
him. Um, and yeah, Jeff is awesome, man. He's a natural.
yeah,
And, you know,
so good.
I mean, it's tough to try to sing a lot of those songs. You know, people ask us, well, why don't you play this song or that song? Well, the truth is, man, we don't have the ability to do them. So we stay away from songs that we can't do. We have enough material that we can do.
Hmm, hmm.
And yes, Jeff still sounds great, but Jeff can talk and sound great. He's just got a natural tone. And so your question was, is when did I meet Jeff?
Yeah,
Jeff sat in with us early back in the 1983. Brian and I had a band that was playing at a club, and our singer that we had was going to quit, and these girls knew, and so they brought Jeff Keith to the gig with the idea of having him sit in with us. And they came to me and said, "Hey, Frankie, will you let our friends sit in with you?" And I said, "Sure." So he got up and he sang with us, and I immediately heard his natural raspy tone that he had. And man, what a great lyricist, songwriter. I mean, Jeff Keith, in my opinion, even though he's our singer, I feel he's one of the greatest lyricists and singers, underrated, unknown in a way compared to Bon Jovi or Steven Tyler or whatever. Jeff Keith is one of the greatest, and it's because he has the natural realness to his voice.
yeah, yeah. Undeniably one of the best. And
Well,
so
thank you
and so
very much.
how good does it feel to be back, you know, playing your music to people? Like, you caught COVID, you got laid out there for a little bit, hey? Like, we're back. Does it feel like normal now, or?
It feels great to be able to do. You know, COVID was for everyone. The world was a horrible experience, but it reset everything. It leveled all of us down.
Mm,
It feels great now. We're grateful to be able to be back at it, not only to earn a living and to recover the losses, but to be in the public again, to be able to share the live music experience again without those restrictions and being told you can't go in public. I mean, you know, that's what the world was told that for however long. But now that we're able to do it again, we're very grateful. And I'm looking at the calendar year 2024. Tesla has a lot in store. It's crazy.
yeah, I saw that
And
post you threw up on your Facebook page yesterday, I think the day before. Tons of shows coming up for you guys, which is great, right? And what was that first show like back? Like, do you remember where it was?
what, after COVID? No, I
Yeah.
don't really remember the first one. We've had a busy year last year. I mean, we were really busy. We've been really hammering away now that they've all been great. And the best part is the music, the songs. Every night when I get on the guitar and I start off What You Give and the crowd responds, there's nothing more rewarding than making all those people feel that feeling and them reciprocating it back, you know, in
Mhm.
a live atmosphere.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
people
that's what
talk
it's
about,
about, right? That's what it's about for you guys.
Yeah, it's real, it's live. People talk about technology and selling albums and this and that. Yeah, streaming has changed everything, but there's nothing that will change being live in a room with an artist. Like this, a few months ago, I went and saw Peter Frampton,
Mm.
and being in the audience, listening and watching Peter Frampton in real life, right there. There's nothing that will ever take that away. So we're very grateful that we can do that. We're going to be doing it a lot this year. We're at Las Vegas House of Blues for 5 nights again. Probably going to sell out. Residency gig there. I'm heading to Tampa, Florida here in a couple days. 2 nights, sold out. Very, very grateful.
Yeah, a killer, right? Like killer to still be doing it. Like we freaking love your band, dude. We love your band.
Well, man,
Uh,
thank
and-
you, and
and-
I'm grateful that we have 3 out of 5 original guys, Brian Wheat and Jeff Keith. Man, they're my bros. We've been hammering this thing, keeping it together,
yeah,
despite all the changes and turmoil and different things that have happened throughout the past 40 years. And there's nothing that can replace that feeling.
yeah. And what's it like? I don't even know how to word this without sounding crass, but like, what's it like to not have Troy there and have a new drummer and kind of a new feel, right? Having a different drummer is it's a big thing.
Well, anytime you change a member of a group that was together, in the early incarnation of it, it's definitely going to feel different. Um, but changes are inevitable in life, and you roll with it. But you have to find the right person. Finding Dave Rude was not an easy task. I worked for a long time with different guitar players until I found him.
Mm,
And because there's a chemistry involved in how everyone gets along, number one, and the attitudes and dependability and all of those things are the most important. But then the second most important is being able to play and feel the rhythm, you know. So you were talking about the drummer's spot. Stevie Brown, our drummer that plays with us now, has been on and off with us for years. We've known him for years. He's a local kid in our hometown of Sacramento. Troy has brought him into this position before
mm.
when Troy missed some events, and so it was a natural transition to have Stevie Brown and his energy uh, into that spot. And he does a great job of it, and he drives us, and he's always got a smile, and he plays how we wanted a drummer to play.
Yeah,
And he plays this like Troy does, but he also brings his own energy into it, and the wheels are rolling. That's what matters,
yeah.
is the team is able to get out on the field and play.
And I've talked to a lot of musicians over the years, and they say like that the tour life is something that kind of just slips by, and there's times in shows where it flies by so quickly that it's really tough to kind of live in that moment. Do you feel the same thing?
um I think I understand what you're saying. The actual shows are the easy part. Yes, they fly by quick. The 90 minutes or 2 hours, depending on where we're at, on the stage and playing the music, that is the easiest part of this whole thing.
Hmm.
Uh, the traveling, the getting in and out of airports, getting guys checked into hotel rooms, getting everybody to be on time, getting on the bus, coordinating practices, arguing over the sound checks, all of that crap is the difficult most, the 22 hours of the day, and the days off of sitting in a parking lot of Walmart twiddling your thumbs
Hmm.
waiting for those 2 hours that you described. That's what we get paid for.
Totally
That's the
right.
hard part. Very difficult. And that's why, you know, when you have a group of people, I don't care if it's a team, a basketball team, or whatever, everyone's kind of got to jive and work together for it to work.
Hmm. Hmm. And I'm curious about your first concert. Like, how old were you, and which band was it?
Well, I can remember being a toddler and going to a barbecue or a party or something with my mom, and there was a band playing in the backyard, and there was a guitar player. And I remember I must have been 2 or 3 years old, and I was like on her shoulders like this. She would carry me around. And I remember a guitar player having a flying V guitar. And
Nice.
that image, I can still see it in my mind of this guy playing this thing that was shaped like a flying V, and it just blowing my mind as a little kid. Fast forward to when I was 10 years old, Johnny Cash and the Statler Brothers were playing at the Memorial Auditorium in Sacramento. And that's the first concert that I really remember
Mm.
seeing the Man in Black and hearing his voice. And man, I just was mesmerized. A year later, one of my cousins took me to hear Robin Trower
Okay.
perform at the same auditorium that I saw Johnny Cash the year before. I saw Robin Trower, and that blew my mind. His guitar sound was epic. It just, wow, I'd never heard a guitar sound so good in my life. Then my mother took me to see a movie called Monterey Pop Festival,
Mm.
and that is the movie footage that has Jimi Hendrix playing Wild Thing, and when he sets his guitar on fire.
Hmm. Hmm.
Have you seen that footage?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's iconic. But seeing that in a movie when I was like 10 years old really flipped me out watching Jimi Hendrix do that.
And
Yeah.
isn't it crazy to think that, like, your band Tesla, that's some people's first concert experience.
Yeah, I hear that a lot, you know. And then I also hear at every show, parents and grandparents are bringing their kids to see Tesla, and oh, this is his first concert or her first concert ever. And we get to meet those kids, and it's amazing. Yeah, there's nothing like being at a concert. Uh, One of the first concerts I ever saw was Day on the Green in Oakland Coliseum, big outdoor stadium.
Mm.
Uh, hearing the Scorpions for the first time on their Blackout tour. You know, I'll never forget that.
Nice. Brilliant album. Like, full on. Those guys were just killing in the early 80s, eh? Like, killing.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. All right, Frank, I got a few fan questions for you I want to get to before I wrap this up. I said I'd maybe need about half hour, probably get a little bit past that if that's cool. Uh,
I'm here, man. I'm all yours,
oh,
buddy.
beauty. Okay, so Corey goes, which album does Frank think that the band hit every gear just right? The writing, performance, engineering. Tough question.
We're talking about Tesla.
Yeah.
Someone's asking me what now? Say that again.
Which album do you think that the band hit every gear just right? The writing, performance, engineering.
Well, you
You're like,
know,
all of them. They're all good.
you're reading my mind. I have to tell you the truth. Every single Tesla album, including the Shock album that we did with Phil Collin,
Right.
we worked really hard on every single one of them. So the effort that was put into every single album is the same. I mean, our goal has always been to try to make a great album, whether it was the last one or one in the middle. Now, that being said, every great band has different chapters and eras of their career, including Van Halen, Led Zeppelin, Rush.
Mhm.
you know, as a fan, Okay, so getting back to Tesla, I'm really fond of our first album because, like we were talking about earlier, I was really young, and those songs had been written at a point in my life when I was a teenager, when I was co-writing them with the guys and the Times. We had been preparing and pre-producing and writing those songs like Changes and Coming at You Live and Modern Day Cowboy, you know, for years up to it. So I would say that first album, we were live in the studio at Bearsville. The second album, we were under pressure, what they call the sophomore jinx,
Mm.
and we were really trying to find ourselves even more so than the first album on the second album. Now that was got Love Song, Heaven's Trail. The 5-man acoustic jam album was totally live at a club, so I think we were firing all cylinders on that album. And Psychotic Supper, we were living in New York City for 3 months in Manhattan,
Mm.
going crazy. And
Well, that's
so,
actually the album that he prefaced that question with was, I've been listening to Psychotic Supper. It's fucking amazing. What does Frank think is the best one?
okay, well, I would put that, I don't know if it's the best one, but we were definitely in our prime, in our heyday at that period of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're
Yeah.
going nuts. We
Yeah.
were living in New York City full time. And, they say the city never sleeps. Well, I can tell you, we didn't sleep a wink either.
Love it. This is a really tough question. Alec wants to know, what song does Frank want to be remembered for?
Well, it's hard, man, because like I was saying earlier, every song that I personally interjected my writing into has a different flavor. Okay. Like Spinal Tap says, changing my style is my style. Maybe to a fault. I don't know.
Mm.
But what you give, the acoustic element and the mood of it and the message of the lyrics, my experimenting with the country twang in there and mixed with Jeff and his heartfelt lyrics, probably what you give.
Sure. Like, who's the one that makes you happy? Who's the one that is always on your mind? Like,
It's not
nailed
what
it.
you got to give, the love that you share, and there's a lot of times we can all tend to be self-absorbed instead of giving of ourselves. And so that's a good message.
Yeah. Danton wants to know, what tour was the most brutal? Schedule, other bands, mishaps, that sort of thing.
Um, well, our very first tour when we opened for David Lee Roth was pretty brutal, in a sense of it was our very first encounter with being on a tour bus and having a British tour manager that was our manager, and he was really he was hard on us, man. And we were young and green, and that was a wild tour, man. I mean, we were thrown into some pretty big venues, opening for David Lee Roth on the Eat 'Em and Smile tour. So that was a pretty
Scary
wild time.
experience, but you don't know what you're to expect. You don't know, like, you've never done it before. Like, sure.
Yeah. And then after that, we did a couple rental car tours, and we ended up playing the Texas Jam and touring around. Some of the European tours when we were first starting out were really tough. All of us cramming into a van
Mm.
and driving across Scotland and not being able to understand anybody. And, you know, but looking back on it, it was all very much uh, 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 an experience that you just can't buy. It's just tough experiences, but it was great. I wouldn't change it.
Yeah, right. Like necessary, toughness. You need to have that, right? Growing experience.
Well, we grew up like that. Brian, he worked at McDonald's and worked hard as a young guy. Me personally, I worked picking up trash and taking cutting lumber, cutting trees. We all worked really hard as young guys, and so I think that's why we appreciate what we got so much today, is because we're hard workers.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, fair to say, you've had an incredible career with Tesla, right?
A
Could you
lot
pick?
of ups and a lot of downs, man.
Sure, of course, yeah, like life, right? But could you pick just one career highlight, or is that just impossible?
Oh, you know, for us, and any musician will tell you, we're all fans of music, and we have people that we've all looked up to. Um, so I think any musician will tell you that the highlight for them would be meeting one of their heroes,
Mm,
or getting to work, collaborate with your heroes. There's been a lot of highlights on tour, opening for the Scorpions in Germany, or during their heyday,
wow.
or touring with Def Leppard and hanging out and getting to know Steve Steamin Clark, and all those types of things. One of the highlights was going to Tokyo and hanging out with Jeff Beck after we just did a show, and we had dinner with Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page, and getting to meet your heroes in this business usually is a highlight for most of us musicians.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned
Yeah.
Steve Clark. Of course, you guys did "Song and Emotion." What was the process of that? Like, did you call the guys in Def Leppard and say like, "Hey, we're gonna write a song about Steve," or was it just like you put it out and like, how did that go down?
No, actually, we had done many tours with Def Leppard and had become friends with them, including Steve. And we knew that Steve was having a lot of trouble with his addiction and had been in rehabs and stuff. But we were actually not writing the song about Steve. We were writing it about a street musician in New York. I told you we lived in New York for like 3 months working on that album.
Didn't
And
sleep.
every day
Yeah.
I go to the studio, there was a guy on the street playing music. So the song was actually being written about that guy.
Mm,
When we were in the studio, we got a phone call that we had lost Steve. Steve had lost his battle with alcoholism and had died. And so that hit us really hard while we were actually working on the song in the studio.
mm,
And we were listening to the lyrics. And when we went to overdub the guitar solos, after just receiving that news, Tommy and I geared our riffs and paid tribute to Steve by playing some of his style of riffs in the song. But lyrically, it was already conceived and being written about another lonely man on the street that
mm,
we would walk by every day in the city of New York, Manhattan, in front
mm.
of Carnegie Hall, right there. This guy would be out there singing, and people would just be walking by, not paying attention. And this guy would be out there in front of Carnegie Hall busking, right? That's what they call it, busking, trying to bust, make a living, but no one would pay attention to him. So when it come time to do the artwork and the credits on the album, we definitely wanted to pay tribute and mention Steve and
Hmm.
dedicate the song.
Okay, I wonder, was there like a slight tweak in the writing? Like, did Jeff slightly, like, were there something like the on all alone on his way to the top? Like, was there a slight tweak to the song? It sounds like it was written for him.
Yeah, it might have been that verse is at the end of the song.
That's right.
So you're right. Maybe the last verse hadn't been written yet at that point. I know the guitars, we definitely tweaked the guitars to sound like Steve Clark,
Mm,
but the lyrics maybe hadn't been finished yet at that point of that verse you're talking about. Jeff and Michael Barbiero may have brainstormed about that and put that in there. I think you're right.
yeah, yeah. Wow, trippy to hear the story, the backstory of that. Um, Frank, I'd love to get outside of music and what you're known for real quick, if that's cool. I'm wondering, like, what are you binge watching when you find time to sit in front of the tube and watch?
Well, we're pretty old fashioned around here. We watch grit TV. We watch a lot of westerns. We
Okay.
love horses. We love cowboys. We love old. I love old TV. I love TV when Technicolor first came in. I love the television of like the Virginian. I love that TV show. I love the original Star Trek. You know,
Yeah.
the middle 60s. The mid 60s, uh, early 60s to mid 60s television. The color and the technology of the filming is just beautiful to me. Um, Television kind of went cheesy in the 70s. The quality of it wasn't the same.
Yeah.
Fast forward to modern television, again, westerns like Longmire, we like to watch that. Anything with horses in it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What's the one with Kevin Costner? I'm blanking on the name. It's the
Yellowstone.
Yeah, that's a great series as well. That's great.
Yeah, we watch Yellowstone sometimes. Gets a little dramatic, but
A
I
little
like the
bit, yeah.
old grit TV is on a lot in our house here.
Yeah.
And um, and then I like old comedies. Believe it or not, I've stumbled on a link on my Instagram that is playing old Archie Bunker reruns.
Okay.
and, and I love the old, Sanford and Son
Yeah.
I love comedy. When I'm gonna watch something, I love to laugh and have it entertain me that way. I don't like scary movies and all stuff that makes me feel graphic and sick and feel weird.
Yeah, it's weird. I used to like horror movies as a kid, but now like you. I'm not a fan, man. I don't like the jump scares. I don't like feeling like that anymore. It's not a fan. Not a fan anymore.
Like gore and stuff like that. I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah, yeah. Which book are you currently reading? And I'd like, if you could, to recommend a couple rock autobiographies.
Yeah, well, let's see. I read Carlos Santana's biography. That was good. I read the Long Strange Trip Grateful Dead biography. The other one, Bob Weir. Uh, I do like biographies. Um,
Yeah, same.
Sometimes I'll get into reading like self help books. How to manage your life, kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but I haven't been reading books lately too much over the holidays and stuff. But when I'm at the airport, I'll pick up a book, to try to pass the time, and it's usually a biography.
Yeah, same. I just picked up the I can't remember what it's called, but it's the Getty Lee autobiography. I flipped through a couple pages last night, I mean, obviously it's going to be a fantastic read, right?
Yeah, that's My effing life or something like that.
Yeah, that's what it is. My effing life. That's right.
I gotta get that book. I love
Yeah.
Rush and Geddy Lee, and he's so witty, man. Yeah, I'd love to read that. You know which book really surprised me that was a page turner was KK Downing's biography.
Oh, no way. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and he gets a bad rap because he left Judas Priest or whatever, but you know, being in a band is not easy, man. And when you got power struggles, and ego trips and stuff, I mean, who knows what happened in there? But when you get KK Downing's side of it, it's pretty entertaining.
I bet, man. And of course, KK he was in that band in their heyday. He was like the guy.
Absolutely. And he talks about how they discovered leather clothes and the whole image of it all
Yeah.
and the power struggles that went on within the band. And it's but he talks about his childhood and his relationship with his parents and stuff like that. It was a good read. I enjoyed it.
I think I read something a couple years back that you were working on the modern day Cowboy. Like, how close are you to finishing up a book? You're like, fuck off, dude.
Well, man, no, I mean, I'm amazed. I'm laughing because I'm amazed that you picked up on those details, man. I have a lot of ideas. A lot of them do pan out. Out of 10 things that I dream up, 2 or 3 of them actually come to fruition in a timely manner.
Mhm.
That one's still far away because
Yeah,
haven't been able to really sit down. I've got notes and scribbles and ideas here and there, but I do understand why a guitar player or a musician would need a writer, a ghost writer to collaborate with to help them put it together.
yeah. I
Uh,
can understand that too. Like the daunting process of like, where do I start? How does it go? Like, how deep do I dive? All that shit, right?
yeah, if I got to sit down and type in front of a laptop for like hours and hours and hours and hours, it's probably not going to happen. So I think, Brian Wheat wrote a book, and I think what you have to do, I don't know this for a fact, but I think you have to get an actual book writer, author person to sit down with you for like a week, and
Yeah,
they just ask you questions just like we're doing in this interview. And they dictate it, and then they turned it into a book.
that's right. Yeah, Brian's book's called Son of a Milkman. I read that. That's a
Yeah.
good book. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
My life is an open book already, man. Go to my Instagram page. I throw it all out there. I put pictures out there. I always, throw everything out there anyway. So
Yeah, you're active, man. I follow along on all of them: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all that. Are you a big sports guy? Like, what's your team if you're watching sports?
oh man, we watched the Bills beat Miami last night on football, and there was an amazing play there where the guy just ran with like 80 yards and made a touchdown. So we've been enjoying football a lot lately.
Yeah,
College football we've been enjoying. Been spending a lot of time with my father-in-law watching football, and been enjoying that a lot more now.
right,
In the past, I didn't pay attention to sports. I was more of just about music and horses and animals and that aspect. But when you can really sit down and watch it, I'm enjoying it a lot more now.
right on, right on.
I
All right,
really was enjoying the Super Bowl last year and the year before when Cincinnati was kicking ass with Joe Burrow. I was disappointed he got injured this year, and I'm sure he's disappointed too, right?
yeah, for sure. Yeah,
It was fun watching him, and I'm looking forward to him making a comeback next year.
yeah, yeah. All right, Frank, I'll respect your time, man. I could do this with you for hours, but I'll wrap it up with one
Who's your
last.
team?
Pardon me?
Who's your team, man? How about you?
Oh, Vancouver Canucks hockey. I'm a hockey kid.
Okay,
I'm wearing
hockey.
I'm wearing New York Yankees. Got this for Christmas, but yeah, I'm a hockey guy through and through.
Yeah, I got a lot of friends that are into hockey. I should check that out a little bit closer.
Oh man, hockey's so good, dude. It's so fast, so tough. Like it's such a great sport. It's such a great sport.
The Canucks. I'll have to
The Canucks are
search for
kicking ass too this year. I think they're fourth overall, which is for a Canucks fan. Like we're used to bottom of the barrel, scraping the fucking bottom, like not good, right? So pretty
'em.
awesome to be
Okay.
where we're at. All right, Frank,
Well,
I'll respect your time. One last question. It's not a question, but it's more of a story. So I want you to share a near-death story with us where you're like, "Holy shit, I could have just died there."
oh, you're gonna have to give me a minute to think about that. You're asking me to share a near-death experience?
Yeah, like I don't know. There's lots of stories with, especially in your career, driving on shitty Canadian highways or uh, dicey airplane stories, or you got sucked under a riptide and almost died when you were 8, or shit like that.
Well, okay. Yeah, I've pressed my luck, and I've been very lucky in different situations where like everybody has. I've been on motorcycles. I've lived a pretty crazy life as far as doing things, riding horses. I've competed in events with the horses. But I'll be honest, okay, and I don't want to get too crazy, but near death, I would say for me has been with addiction and
Mm.
drugs. I've pushed myself with cocaine and alcohol years ago to a point to where like, oh my God, am I going to make it? And I'm only sharing that. It's very personal, and hopefully, I don't know, what's going to happen with that statement, but I've been clean and sober now for a couple years, and I don't recommend drugs or alcohol to anybody. And if you want to die, especially nowadays, with fentanyl and all that shit, it's Russian roulette out there. But
Mhm.
even before all of that, back in the glory days, the near death experiences, I would say, would be my own stupid self-inflicted bullshit. So by me making this statement, I'm just hoping that someone will be motivated to not do that.
Yeah, choose the other path.
Oh yeah, life is so much better when you're clear-minded and not hungover, and having a near-death experience of like overdosing and feeling like shit, and you know puking and all the crap that goes with that.
Yep.
So
Well
how's
said.
that your death answer for you?
Thank you, Frank. Man, it's been a slice, man. I am a huge fan of your band. 2024 is a big year for Tesla. I mean, those Vegas residency dates have got to be like the best. House of Blues there is one of the best venues in North America, man.
It is, man. House of Blues is a great venue. We do a lot of them. Chicago, we've done. New Orleans, the Las Vegas House of Blues at the Mandalay Bay.
Yeah,
And just to elaborate again, um, being sober now for me and not having to worry about near death experiences of pushing it to the limit.
mm,
um Especially in a town like Las Vegas, you know every show is freaking great because not doing that other thing, you know what I mean?
yeah,
So uh living life, man, living the natural high life in Las Vegas, at the House of Blues for 5 nights in April. It's going to be freaking great. So
yeah.
join us.
Deadly, man. Frank, you're easy to find on Instagram. You're Frank Hannon Official. You're Frank Hannon Music on Facebook. You're simply Frank Hannon on Twitter. Thank you again for jumping on the podcast. I've been a fan since the beginning, as I'm sure you can tell by now.
Oh yeah, you've got some details that I forgot, man. Thank you very much. And
Indeed, man. Well, have a great day. Thanks for doing this, and I'll tag you when we're chucking this stuff online.
Peace.